speaker, especially since it was a cocktail hour that was more than an hour. So just about at the time when we're ready to begin, the person who was running the event came up and, with the microphone on and, tapped him. Hello. Do you want to hear the speaker or continue to have fun? I mean, great welcome to Florida. Anyway, what we've got is a circumstance in business right now that how many of you, just out of curiosity, how many of you have a Facebook account? How many of you have a LinkedIn account? How many of you go to YouTube for one reason or another on a pretty regular basis? For the record, that's pretty much everybody in the audience raised their hand. And because the camera can't see the audience, I can basically tell you anything I want, right? But pretty much everybody raised their hand. And how many of you may think that electronic communications like that have gone a little too far? For the record, everybody raised their hand. So what we're going to do today is, if you'd be kind enough to pass those out. I come to you with no PowerPoint and none of those programs that people kind of like fall asleep with. And I figured out, because we're dealing with adult learners, which is yous, because I was just in Philadelphia, it's yous. Up here, it's yous guys. And if I was in Nashville, what would it be?
Y'all.
Y'all. What's the plural of y'all?
All you all.
Who said that? All of y'all. And I thought it was all yous guys or something like that, but it wasn't. But what we're going to do today is go over some basics, go over some mistakes. And the reason we're going to talk about mistakes is because every mistake that I talk about, I am guilty of. I will admit that. The last thing I like is a person coming up and referring to the audience as, here's a mistake that you make, and then they point to you with the mistake. But keep in mind one thing. Whenever you point to somebody, you have three fingers pointing back at you. So keep in mind one thing, that everything that I talk about that's negative is because I've been guilty of it. And sometimes I've learned, sometimes I haven't. And I know by getting thrown out of class many times in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade when the teacher said, DiPietro, be quiet, I didn't listen. So I was banished. Anybody else get banished to the hallway when they could do that? Back when they could hit kids and stuff like that, but can't do that stuff anymore. Here's what we're going to do. Do you all have your programs yet? No, we're still working on it over there. Yep. Let's do this with an audience participation thing. And by the way, there's tons more food and there's coffee, so feel free during the next 3 hours to go up and refill your cup as much as you want. Social media, how would we define it? Anybody? And this is one you don't have to raise your hand. How would you define social media? Sorry? Oh, good. Here's what you say. Social media is a blend of electronic communication platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Now, there are about 400 of them today. Flickr, StumbleUpon, all those other type things that you can automate your messaging. But it's my belief that the more you automate, the less you personalize. And the less you personalize, the less you get to make an impression on your prospect or client. So I believe that there's still a blend that you can use to personalize, but not necessarily spend all your time calling people or waiting for them to call you back. So if you use the proper blend, there was a radio station that in Worcester, actually XLR, I think their tower is right up here. They call themselves the best mix. So what we'll want to do today is talk about the best mix of blending social media and blending personal contact. Okay? Do any of you cringe when you hear the term cold call? Is that a term that's not used anymore, or do people still cold call? Okay, there's a way to make a cold call a warm call, and it's a lot easier to do it that way. And we're going to get into that as well today. But first, I want to give you a little math quiz because I'm told that everybody up here is involved with some type of mathematics or accounting or banking, etc. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 9 and don't tell anybody else what it is. Okay. Now take that number and multiply it by 9. Now If you're from Holden, raise your hand and I'll go slower. Okay. So now you have a 2-digit number, right? So take those 2 digits and add them together. So if the number was 35, add 3 and 5 and you get 8. How many of you are still with me? Mostly everybody. Okay. So take the number that you have and subtract 5 from that number. Now you have another number, right? Give that number an alphabetical equivalent. So if the number is 1, it's A, 2, it's B, 3, it's C. Now, take that letter and think of a European country that begins with that letter. Now take that country and the last letter of that country and think of an animal. Now take that last letter of that animal and think of a color. And we're out of time. Hope you enjoyed this session. Have a great day. Who thinks they might have an answer? Without blurting it out, but by raising your hand. Who thinks they might have an answer? Young lady, your hand went up first. Don't blurt it out. What's your first name?
Catherine.
Catherine. Do you mind if I call you Catherine?
No.
You can call me Mr. DiPietro. Yeah, just a joke, Catherine. Just don't get mad at me. Would you just stand up just for a second? I promise I won't embarrass you. Look around this room, Catherine. Does it say marketing first on that? Marketing first?
Marketing first.
Accounting second. And HR third. Do you have a degree of credibility with this audience?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure. How much credibility would you have if you were to tell these people that there's such a thing as an orange kangaroo from Denmark?
I think I would have a great deal of credit.
Okay. Is that what you got?
Yes.
Let's give Catherine a round of applause for bearing the control. My only cheap commercial, you get a copy of my book. I'll sign it later.
Thank you.
Okay. So, social media. Let's get back to the topic. I had the book here, and I said if I don't give it away, I can't deduct it from later on. Social media, it's that combo. And by the way, there's stuff here that you can write in, fill in the blanks. Here's the thing I figured out with adult learners over 20, which some of you fall into that category. Some of you don't. If you hear something, there's a certain degree of retention. If you hear it and see it, there's a higher degree of retention. But if you hear it, see it, and write it down, then all these studies show that you kind of own it. So you've invested your time to be here. You've invested your money to be here. The last thing you want to do is walk out of here with nothing. So it's my obligation to give you something to take back to work with you today. Personal contact, the difference between the two. What is personal contact? Is this an event that's personal contact?
Yes.
Okay. Is any kind of chamber networking event personal contact? Is going to a golf tournament and playing in a foursome with somebody you don't know personal contact? Okay. Is being on the church board or involved with Girl Scouts or involved with Boy Scouts or involved with civic activities in your either town you work in or the town that you reside in, is that personal contact? In other words, it's all ways to meet people without going up to them and saying, "Hi, I'm Bill, buy from me because I'm good." Okay, because how many of you would agree that people like to buy from people they trust? Is there a factor with that? Okay. How many of you remember Spags? Okay. Spag used to wear a button that said, "People like to buy from people who like to sell." Isn't that logical? People like to buy from people who like to sell. And today, it comes in later in the notes, but it's my belief that today the accepted standard or the expected standard is mediocrity. How many times do you see people with smiles on their faces? How many times do you see people that actually look like they're desirous to satisfy your needs, business-wise? Okay? Aren't they the exception to the rule? How about when you go into the hamburger stand or the coffee shop and the young person there, and sometimes it's not even the young person, sometimes it's the older person that was laid off from another job and is forced to do something for no fault of their own. But if a smile ever came across their face would crack, okay, and you would be shocked. So Again, what we want to do is talk about the difference on how we can differentiate ourselves from everyone else, because having a goal of any business, and the key way to achieve that goal is to stand out from the crowd. And that number thing about how to stand out from the crowd, you may want to write that down, is one of the things. And then the be blank from all others trying to reach the same goal is what? Be different. So it all boils down to we haven't yet met the person, so we've got to figure out a way to meet the person. Because would you agree with me, moving up 2 lines, that the goal of having a business is to sell something? Right? Would you agree that unless something is sold, regardless of whether it's a tangible product, a service, or a concept, that unless something is sold, there's no business? And would you also agree that many times the person whose job description does not fall within sales is responsible for repeat business based upon the way they contact the client or prospect? Okay, so let's do a little test here. Peter, right? If you get your mail at home, or say you go to the bank today, and there's not somebody else's name tag on your desk, you know that you've got your job for at least another day. They don't do it that way at Fidelity, right? It's only at the big ones where they. Okay, shouldn't have did that, but I did it. You get your mail, and it's usually you're at work. It's usually a business magazine. It's usually notice from organizations that you belong to. But if there's a handwritten note in it, envelope is handwritten with a stamp as opposed to going through the meter, I would presume, nod to me correctly if I'm correct on this, that's probably one of the things that you would open first.
Yeah, I do it at home too.
At home, okay. What I tried to, this is very interesting, what I tried to do yesterday and today is to go through our mail at home. My wife gets it first. And there's bank statement, insurance statement, credit card statement, direct mail piece, all with either stickers or the number 10 envelopes with the window envelopes on it. And I was looking for either a birthday card or an invitation or something to use as an example here. And I said to my wife this morning, where are all those? She said, well, I opened those first, and they're usually stuck to the refrigerator. You know, how many of you have a refrigerator that you can't tell the brand? Because you have so many different kids' pictures on it, right? So consequently, if you do a handwritten thank you note to someone, they're going to open it first. And I always tell people that when you do the thank you notes, handwrite them, put a stamp on them, and don't put a return address on it. Why? Somebody said the word. Curious. Okay. So they open it first. And I've had situations where I've sent handwritten thank you notes to people where they have called me and said, thank you for the thank you note. Now, just out of curiosity, if you had your, it's not the right word, if you had your choice, what makes more of an impression on you? An email or physical mail with a thank you or an informational piece? Just yell it out. Physical mail, okay? But yet, for the last, what would you say, the last 5 years at least? And I should tell you this as a disclaimer. I also do seminars on how to use social media to increase your business. But I think we've gone so far to one side that we've forgotten that lost art of being able to make eye contact, a good handshake, and a personal follow-up. So that's the reason for this seminar. So one seminar that was so successful, so wildly successful in how to use social media.
So this isn't a plug for the post office?
No, it's not. It's not. But I'll tell you one thing. We make a joke of the post office, but when you consider the service that they provide, the post office used to get a bad rap about people being unfriendly, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that not Express, the one down from Express Mail, is it Priority Mail? For what, $4.95? I think that's one of the best deals out there, considering the price of gas. If you want to drive it to somewhere, just throw it there. But anyway, and I don't have any relatives that work for. Do you work for the Postal Service? And where were we?
I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. Pick the number between 1 and 9. Don't tell anybody else what it is. We're out of time. No, we're
Kangaroo from Denmark.
See, the ADD kicked in there. The handwritten note or the email. If you do the handwritten note, you've got the opportunity to reach them in a physical way. How many of you have been to your place of business today? Few people, okay. When you folks get to work, when do you click on your computers?
It's always on.
Instantly, okay? And what do you do first when you click? Check your email. And there's a little button up on the top right-hand corner of your keypad, of your keyboard. What does it button say?
Delete.
Delete. And what percentage of you, and I don't know you, young lady, right? But I noticed that you're very demonstrative in your there you are. There you go. You're much prettier with glasses on. I mean, with me watching you, because before I just see a blur. You get to a point where you got to, how many of you are at the point in life where you got to put glasses on to see one thing and take them off to see something else? So I'm trying to figure out a way to invent something that you just press something on the side of your head and the lens pops down. But, okay, so there you are. What percentage of your email do you delete without even looking at?
Probably about 60 to 70%.
And what type of work? 60? Did you all hear her? 60 to 70%. What type of work are you involved in? An attorney. Okay. So there's anybody else fall into that category of at least 50% delete without opening? Okay. There's an example, an unrehearsed example. However, if you were to get, and you know what a number 10 envelope is like, and you know what a manila folder is like, and you know what all the, first, well, look, an attorney, when you want proof for something, you send it, first class return receipt, signature required, et cetera, because people look at it, especially when they have all those other stickers on it saying, your U.S. government, et cetera, so, or USPS, U.S. government, government-backed, let's go back to my introduction, a government-backed loan today. Is that still good, or is that a positive or negative? Who knows? But there's another press conference today saying that we're going to be taken care of by the end of the week, so, or was that last night? Or was that Monday Night Football? Who knows? Frequency of email and percentage of deletes is very high. So let's look at ways, and it says it right here, and I will tell you this. I'm not suggesting that you totally disband your social media program. What I'm suggesting is that you supplement it with some of the old-fashioned, maybe the word is OLE fashioned, because old has a negative connotation to it. But I think the older you get, the more you see changes in the way people communicate. And sometimes the new ways are not necessarily the best ways if you've eliminated some of the better ways of the previous way. Does that sound right? Okay. And the reason this whole idea came up is because not too long ago I said to one of the younger people that works at the TV station that I work at in Springfield, I said, hey, why don't you call your client? It was on it was June 2nd. It was right after the tornado. Okay, remember the big tornado June 1st? It stopped in Southbridge. It didn't get all the way out here. But it went from Westfield to Brimfield, and, you see news accounts of it. So I said, why don't you just call your client? And this is a person that I'm talking to, just got out of college in May. So here it was a month later. I said, she's brand new. I said, why don't you just call your client to say, are you all right? Just call her. Are you all right? And she said, I'll send her an email. And I said, Erica, here's one thing. Look, when you're dealing with kids that are younger than your kids, you have a tendency to father them. So I said, look, I'm not going to play father to you, but she might not even have power. So your email might not make it for 3 or 4 days, and if it does come in tomorrow, it might be in a pile of 100 emails. But I said, why don't you just give her a call and say, I just want to see if you're okay, if your business, etc. So she kind of shrugged and then came back in the office about 20 minutes later and said, hey. I said, what? She said, home run. I said, what do you mean? She said, I called her. I said, yeah. She said, oh, thank you so much for checking on me. Would you come in next week, I want to talk to you about that proposal that you left off last week. Okay? Now, I didn't really suggest that she do it as a way to get back in the door. It was just a way to ask about, are you okay? Let me just give you a little side note here. So much of what you do in what I'm going to talk about is done without an immediate tangible return, but it has a cumulative return, so that if people think of you as a caring person who is interested in their business, not your business. And I think that's the biggest thing that people have to worry about in business today is people go in and tell them, people that are in a selling situation, they go in and tell them about their business. Well, quite frankly, the client doesn't care about your business. They care about their business. So you have to have the attitude of, how can I help you? So one of the ways that you can show concern and care is to look at what their business is and then take action with it. So another way that you have the opportunity in a low-tech, low-touch environment is to find clippings from their business. And it says it right here on low-tech supplements. Okay? Number one, and we've already gone over that a million times, is thank you notes. Okay? Thank you notes. Now, people say, well, you think I'm going to spend $350 to go to CVS or Rite Aid? Do we have any pharmacy companies here or stationery stores or whatever? You don't have to spend $350. You can go to Ocean State Job Lot. You got one of those up here, right? And they'll have stationery section where you can buy 20 thank you notes for $1.50, the little kind. Okay, so I'm not talking about huge investment. So there's the thank you note opportunity. The second thing is photo postcards. What do you mean by photo postcards? How many of you have a digital camera? How many of you have a camera? Okay. Take a picture of their business. And I look at the Fidelity people here because this is something that I did when I was proposing something for them when the new facility down the street, which is what, 3 or 4 years old now? When it was being built, when it was being constructed, I came up from Worcester, all the way from Worcester. I drove 17.2 miles. I always went over to Market Basket and got one of those chickens for $3.99. They're great at about 10 in the morning, too, especially the ones that were left over from the night before. And I took pictures of the building as it was being constructed, and I sent them to Ed Manson, like on a every third week basis, so enough where you could see the construction. Once the thing was the shell was put up, you couldn't tell inside. But then after that, I think they opened in the fall, right?
Actually, it's in the winter.
In the wintertime? Okay, so whatever it was good weather, because I remember the picture that I still have. It's got a beautiful blue sky. I took it from down low up the street looking up to the bank, and every banker likes to be looked up to, right? So that's where I took the picture of the thing. So so when it came time to do business, it wasn't like, well, who is John DiPietro? So that's what you can do. How many of you have clients that own businesses? Look, how many of you have phones with cameras on them? Send people pictures. Why? People like pictures, period. Do you know there are some studies out there that say the open rate, and I'm skipping down a bit because my ADD has kicked in, the open rate for video, emails with video, is like 88% compared to 38% for regular email. Why? I don't know. Somebody took a study of it. Probably somebody who sells video for a living. I figured out with every government study, they already know what the results are, so they ask the questions to back up what they already think, but that's the topic. Do we have any government people here? What are you, IRS?
Air share of the schools.
What's that?
The air share of
Oh, okay, so you're at the local level. Okay, and here's one thing, and I don't care what you say, they don't pay teachers enough. So these people that think, teachers have all this time off, they don't, number one. Well, yes, they do, but the amount of money, I have a wife and a daughter that are both teachers, and the amount of money that they put in, and I think any of you have teachers in the family. So this baloney, you see all these people say, you got to make the school year longer. In Worcester, they figured out they take all the underperforming schools and extend the day by an hour to make the kids smarter. Isn't that brilliant thinking? That's got nothing to do with this, but yes, it is. So anyway, I just want to say, not all the government people fall into the same. Did I dig myself out of the hole passage? Are you a dues-paying member here? If you're not, then the hell with you. Then I go back to my original assertion.
Thank you.
Okay, great. One thing you don't want to do is, if you notice, I didn't say go to Staples or go to Home Depot or go to, I did say Rite Aid but whatever. When you're going to knock a company, knock the category. Don't knock the company because you don't know if they're sitting in the front row. And I know for a fact that at a Worcester Chamber event, Upton Bell, who was a radio guy in Worcester, knocked the Telegram, the newspaper. Said, "Oh, that stinky Worcester Telegram." Okay? And there's Bruce, the publisher, in the front row. And Bruce confronted him right during his presentation. Is that good for the chamber? No. And I always want to do things that are good for the chamber. So the other thing that I'm suggesting to you is as follows. Clips. We're back to number 3. Clips. Clippings from newspapers. Whether it be, remember back when they had engagements in the paper? They don't have engagements anymore. You remember the engagement? So you cut out the person's engagement, you send it to the mom or dad, or you send it to them. Hey, another thing, thought you'd be interested in. Okay, you know the person's son or daughter is an athlete. So you see it in the Sentinel or the Enterprise or whatever. Cut it out. Send it to them. Okay? And here's a case where you can't put your business name on the outside of the envelope. Because it's something about who? Them. And let me tell you one thing. Them is more important than you. Because them has the checkbook. You got the goods, they got the checkbook. Hopefully there'll be a happy merger somewhere in between. But you want to do what's good for them. If you have the attitude, how can I help you? Versus, same thing, 5 words. What's in it for me? Can you tell when somebody approaches you that is trying to sell you what's good for them as opposed to what's good for you? Right? What do you have a tendency to do? Back off, turn away, and say, they don't have my best interest in mind. So, and then the other thing that I've got down here, knowledge of the name of the spouse. Okay? And the other thing is here, know when to turn the vacuum cleaner off when there's a function in your hotel. And the other thing is, know when to ad-lib so that you've got time to take a sip of your coffee while the audience is laughing. Okay, you see what I'm saying here? Everything we're doing is all customer-focused. And I don't care what you do for work, whether it's, again, a physical product or a service, it's got to be customer-focused. And this allows you to recognize your customer. Now, mid-tech supplements. Mid-tech supplements, what do you mean? I will tell you this. I'm not a techie. I hire people that know that stuff because I just, you know the way people have certain leanings toward things that they like to do? I was in a Staples, I can say Staples, right? Last night, and I'm looking at these tablets, because I'm tired of schlepping that laptop and plugging it and getting them on. And I said to the person who was very knowledgeable, I said, how do you know all this stuff? And he said, well, to start with, I'm a nerd, so that helps. Okay, and that's what he said, and he knows that stuff. But mid-tech, I go to people who are good with that stuff. I find these flip videos. You know what a flip video camera is? Okay, here's one here. This is a flip video camera, okay, because we're recording this. But it's HD. By the way, give Patricia a round of applause because her arms must be just about. And I know she has an ego before because when Melissa was introducing the people, all the guys waved like this and she got up. Remember? She got up. So she has good self-confidence because she's Portuguese. And originally from what, New Bedford?
Yep.
Fall River, New Bedford, okay. So she moved all the way up to north central Mass where the French are in control, right? Are the French still in control up here? In the Cleghorn section of Fitchburg? No? Okay. Whatever. Okay. Video thank you notes. Here's another thing. And besides, if you've got smartphones, you've got a video component on it. Try doing this. A video thank you note to someone. Okay? Oh, we've never done that before. Do it. Try it. See what's going to happen. They'll call you. They'll call you. I got tickets to a Red Sox game last week from my daughter's boss. And they were phenomenal seats. So while I was at Fenway, I did and I held the camera right up in front of me and said, Peter, I just want to say thank you so much for these tickets. They're great. Pause. And if they ever become available again, feel free to tell my daughter. Okay? I got a thank you note from him saying, best thank you note I've ever gotten. Did I make an impression on him? Yes. Do you want to make an impression on your people in a positive way? Yes. Right? So what you have to do is do things differently, not just rely on electronics. The third thing, as I contradict myself, video proposals. Try a video proposal. Or preamble. Here's a good word for you. Send a note beforehand saying, I'm going to be here on Tuesday to discuss this, blah, 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 and this is what I want. This is what it entails. So you're just creating that mindset that they know what you're going to do. So the last couple things I want to say are this. All of the things that we talked about today, they are not a means to the end. I mean, they are a means to the end. They're not an end to themselves. Okay? They're just a way of creating a higher degree of acceptance of you as a vendor. And ultimately what you want to do is this. You want to go from vendor status to partner status. Okay? Bankers push that all the time. We want to be part of your team. We want to be your personal banker. I mean, if you look at any bank ads throughout the United States, they're pretty much generic, where you can just plug in the name of the bank. But the whole thing is developing what? A relationship with that company so that they have the trust to call you. And if you utilize some of these ideas in a format that allows you to blend the 100% electronic format that we've become accustomed to with the old way of sending a thank you note, sending a photo, sending a clipping, all that will do is increase the mindset of you with your client. And I will tell you this as a final note, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. With this economy being what it is, now is it almost a year ago that we got the note saying that the recession's over? Was it just about a year ago? Okay. For some reason, Central Mass is kind of like on the last part of the receiving end of that note. However, the worst time to introduce a new concept is when things are going good. The worst time to introduce something new is when things are going great, because why should we change? Everything's going great. Right now is the absolute best time to change. Remember Santana, you've got to change your evil ways, baby. And I'm not saying that you all have evil ways. But now is the best time to introduce something new, because everybody's looking for different avenues to get to where they were prior to 2008. So if you take some of the new technology that's out there today and blend it with the ways that made you successful before technology even existed, then you can be a very, very, very successful